Coming up next, the great Peter King. What perhaps was most troubling and what set me off was the idea that when given an opportunity to stand up and fight to try to get this thing passed, even the Republican-sponsored bill, Peter King, chose politics over trying to get it done. He didn't once turn to his colleagues and say, please, guys, put politics aside and vote for this thing. Didn't once do that. Instead, launched a tirade against Democrats about the process and about how cowardly we were for bringing this up to a vote.
Okay, remember that? He was so subdued in our show. Welcome back to Morning Joe, top of the 8 on the East Coast, but we're in L.A. along with John Ridley.
Yeah.
We got Mike Barnacle standing by in Washington, and also Republican Congressman and ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee, Representative Peter King, is on the set in New York as well.
Let me bring up another issue that probably will be in your campaign before we get to Anthony. It does have to do with 9/11. There are a lot of people that wanted to stop a mosque from being built near Ground Zero. I certainly understand those emotions. At the same time, Congressman, how does anyone square the First Amendment and the freedom of religion with a state, a government banning a private group from putting a house of worship on private property?
Yeah.
Well, I am opposed to the mosque at Ground Zero, but the government has no right to stop it from being there. I think it's incredibly insensitive. I have so many family members in my district who have come to me who feel like the wound has been torn open, and within less than 10 years after the attack on Ground Zero, to have a mosque within 2 blocks of the World Trade Center site, to me, is incredibly insensitive. And it was almost 50 years after World War II that people thought it was shocking that Catholic nuns wanted to put a convent in Auschwitz, and the Pope intervened, and told the nuns not to have it there, even though these nuns obviously had nothing to do with the Holocaust, even though they were praying for all those who had died. It was looked upon as being insensitive. So I think it's really wrong with the leadership of the Muslim community, especially since 9/11. There's been such a lack of cooperation between so many in the Muslim community and law enforcement, and in many ways still a reluctance to acknowledge the real guilt of al-Qaeda.
So you agree with me? I want you to have time to talk about Anthony Weiner, but so you agree with me then, though, that while you're opposed to the mosque at Ground Zero, the city government, the state government, the federal government cannot stop them from building a house of worship there because of the First Amendment, right?
Yes, but I do believe that the Attorney General of New York should investigate the funding for this. It's a $100 million project. They refuse to say where the money is coming from. Also, I think we should know more about the imam there, who presents himself as being this moderate, yet there have been quotes by him which said the U.S. Was accessory to 9/11, and also the fact that he refuses to define Hamas as being a terrorist organization. But no, the government cannot stop it.
Measured.
Yeah, hey, okay, you are exactly right constitutionally. Hey, John Heilman, you've got a question for Peter King.
Well, I think we might want to get into Anthony Weiner at this point.
I do.
Let's do it right now. Let's jump in.
Here we go.
As Joe said before, Congressman Weiner, we were sitting here with him just the other day, made a pretty serious charge. I know you want to rebut that, so let's get into it.
First of all, I supported this bill. I was the original co-sponsor of the bill. I worked on it for almost 5 years now, and I strongly support it on the House floor and voted for it. Anthony Weiner and the Democratic leadership sabotaged this bill. We had 255 votes for this bill. The last minute, the Democrats said it required 290, or 2/3. They actually upped it. This was doomed to fail. And this isn't just me saying this. The New York Times, which is no friend of mine, said the Democrats set it up to fail. Newsday said they set it up to fail. Mayor Bloomberg said that the Democrats acted disgracefully. The AFL-CIO thought it should have been brought up under this thing where you required a 2/3 vote. And I'm saying to Anthony Weiner and the Democrats, unless you want to have cops and firefighters die, bring this back up in September and require a simple majority, the way they've done for every other important vote.
Congressman, how many Republicans were for that bill?
12. I'm not here to. This is not a game between Democrats.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
So, Congressman, one of Congressman Weiner's arguments is that you have a lot of throw weight on this issue with your fellow Republican congressman. He says you didn't do anything to lobby them. Is that true or not?
First of all, Anthony Weiner doesn't know because he never worked on this bill the way I did. Anthony Weiner, the first I really heard him get involved was on the House floor that night. He was involved in the vote in the committee, and I had sent my staff over to work with him to make sure he had the answers to the questions that were being raised by Republicans. I have been totally nonpartisan on this. This is not a game of of how many Republican or Democratic votes. We worked on it all these years to get to 218. That's what you need to pass a bill. And the Democrats didn't look for Republican votes on health care or stimulus or cap and trade. I've never heard of a major piece of legislation which someone supports where you require it to go to a 2/3 vote rather than 218.
But just on the question,
yeah.
did you or did you not lobby Republican members or not?
Absolutely. And I had said throughout this, going back to 5 years ago, we will be lucky to get 24, 25 Republican votes. This is not supported by the Republican Party. I have broken with the party on this. The same as I did when I opposed Bill Clinton's impeachment. The same as I did when I opposed George Bush on Dubai ports. This has never been a partisan issue for me. And why they are making it partisan now, if they want to have a campaign issue, fine.
Hey,
but
Peter,
the fact is cops and firefighters are dying and it's on their hands.
Peter,
yes,
let me get in here. This is stunning. So tell me whether I'm being too cynical here. You get 12 Republicans to vote for this bill, which will put it over the top. You'll get 218. You'll have a clean majority, and this will pass the House of Representatives.
Right. Actually, so Joe, we have 255 votes.
You get to.
Yeah.
Well, hold on a second, though. You get to 218, and you win, right? And it becomes a. Are you telling me that the Democrat, and I'm serious, I'm stunned that they would be this cynical, that the Democratic leadership changed the rules to make it a suspension bill so you would have to get 2/3 the votes so they would make the bill fail and then have an issue to run against you and the Republican Party?
Joe, I think the reason they did it, I can't go into their minds.
They can pass this tomorrow.
Absolutely. They can pass it tomorrow. And I'm quoting them right now.
My point is this. Anthony Weiner screams on the floor. He's shocked and stunned in the Republic. Nancy Pelosi could pass, if what you're saying is true,
it is true.
Nancy Pelosi could pass this bill today by bringing it up under regular order. This sounds like one of the sleaziest, most cynical operations, if true, to kill a bill that is going to help firefighters by simply changing the rules, by raising the bar so people can attack you and the Republican Party.
Well, Joe, it is true because we got 255 votes. And just imagine yourself, if you were working with Democrats on the bill when you were in Congress and you had gotten to 255. Now, Joe, I can tell you why I think they're doing it. Because they're afraid the Republicans will make a motion or offer an amendment which will say that illegal immigrants cannot take part in this plan. And the Hispanic caucus has come to Nancy Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and said that they would bolt if that happened. So rather than face a tough vote on this in election year, they are willing to let cops and firefighters die. And they knew, Joe, I was in these negotiations.
Mike Barnicle, we talk about why Americans hate Congress. Why Congress's approval ratings at 22%. And here we have Anthony Weiner, and I'm going to get Anthony back on, because I've got to say, I didn't have all the facts before. Here we have a bill that would help cops and firefighters that were on the front lines of 9/11. They had 200, for people that don't know, you get 218 votes, it passes. Now we find out that they had 255 votes to pass this bill, and Nancy Pelosi and I guess Anthony Weiner and everybody decided we're going to up it to make sure it fails so we don't show weaknesses in our own party.
But because there was an amendment to the bill that they didn't agree with.
No, but the thing is, you go ahead and put it up and vote. But see, what they wanted to do is they wanted to kill the bill so it wasn't the Hispanic caucus that voted against the bill in the Democratic Party and killed it. Mike, this is why Americans hate Congress. They've got enough votes to help cops and firefighters from 9/11, and yet they changed the rules to make sure the bill fails.
And, Joe, that gets to the core question, one that I have for you, Congressman. You're talking about 5 years working on the bill.
That's
why 5 years for a bill like this? It seems to be an automatic. It would be an automatic to anyone out on the sidewalk. Why 5 years?
Mike, I agree with you. First, let me also say Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler, who worked on the bill with me, were 100% honest throughout this. I'm exempting them for anything I say. They've been great on this. There's any number of reasons. First of all, I hate to say it, there's still a bias toward New York in some cases. Somehow, the further you get from Manhattan, the further you get from the New York area, this is not the issue it was on September 12th and September 13th of 2001. Secondly, some Republicans believe that it spends too much money, that it should be authorized every year. I don't accept any of that. That's why I disagree with Republicans. Also, a lot of Democrats and Republicans feel that in an election year, or any of the last election years, why be sending all this money to New York? How to explain that to their constituents? I think it's disgraceful on both sides. But that is part of the reality of being in Washington, and that's why it took so long to get it together. Also, we did have to fine-tune it a bit to find out exactly who was going to be covered, how you set up the standard. But it should not have taken 5 years. This should have been voted on 8 years ago, actually, for that matter.
This is a disgrace. We need to get Anthony Weiner back on. And, you know, Anthony Weiner now needs to lobby. We're going to turn the tables on Anthony, and I'm going to bring him on this show. Anthony needs to now lobby Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party to bring this up for a straight majority vote. In the House of Representatives, if you get 218 votes, it passes and moves on to the Senate. Mike Barnicle, do you agree that
Absolutely.
we need to bring Anthony on here?
The day they come back in September.
That's the question.
Yeah, when they come back.
Ask Anthony Weiner one question. Are you going to bring this up for a majority? I thought his conduct was disgraceful and shameful. This isn't about Anthony Weiner. It's about cops and firefighters who are dying every day. Today on Long Island, a firefighter was dying from the wounds from the lung disease that he suffered on 9/11.
I'll tell you what's wrong with what Anthony Weiner did. And I know Anthony's a friend of mine, but he said that you didn't lobby Republicans to get enough votes to pass this bill. The truth of the matter is you had all the votes you needed to pass this bill until Nancy Pelosi and Anthony Weiner's Democratic Party switched the rules to make it a 2/3 vote through suspension.
And Joe, I stood up on the House floor and said the Republicans are wrong. I stood up on the House floor and said Republicans are wrong. I voted for it. I strongly supported it.
And they are wrong on this.
I agree. And let the Democrats make a campaign issue of it. Don't let cops die.
I agree with you. We got the delay here, and I'm sorry, I agree with you. The Republicans are dead wrong on this, but I'll tell you what, the people that stood in the way of this passing on an up or down vote are dead wrong too, and it's cops and firefighters and our first responders in New York City who are suffering because of it. Mike Barnicle, it's disgraceful, isn't it?
One more disgraceful chapter in congressional history, and as you say, Joe, one more reason why people despise what's going on in Washington.
Yeah.
Wow. And from a police family.
You know, my father was a cop. I'm shocked by this. It's the worst I've seen in Congress since I've been there, and that said something.
Come back. I think this is still a little bit more complicated.
No, it's not. No, it's actually not. You get 218 votes, you pass a bill. They had 255 votes to pass a bill to help cops and firefighters in New York City, and Nancy Pelosi and Anthony Weiner's Democratic Party in the House of Representatives changed the rules so they could blame Republicans who were behaving despicably in this too. But guess what? It's Nancy Pelosi who sets the rules, and it's Nancy Pelosi who made it a 2/3 vote. This is simple, and it's disgusting what they've done.
When we come back, does the